first found out that I was elected class president, the first thing that came to my mind was the fact that I would get to give a speech at graduation. Now, initially, I was filled with an overwhelming sense of excitement because a high school graduation is a very significant event in a person's life, and I would have a chance to be a big part of that. A few minutes later, after the initial excitement died away, I began to brainstorm ideas of what exactly I was going to say. I couldn't think of anything very profound right off the bat, but after a few seconds I remembered, wait a minute. I played the piano at the past 2 commencement ceremonies and the past 3 baccalaureate ceremonies. Also, I was at my sister's graduation ceremony 5 years ago. So, I've heard upwards of 12 to 13 graduation speeches, one of which being Kyle Kunkel's, which counts as like 2.5. So, writing this speech should be a piece of cake. So, I sat down in front of my computer, turned it on, waited for it to load, typed in my username and password, Dharbhamulla, tab, plus PW466, FB9, enter, pulled up a fresh Microsoft Word document, clicked center align, changed the font size to 18, the font to Arial Bold, typed in my graduation speech, hashtag Lego, hashtag YOLO, clicked enter, left align, font size 12, font Baskerville Old Face, and I got working on that bad boy. From that point on, my actions were so rhythmic and full of momentum, I just started my speech. I was weaving in thoughts, and after about 20 minutes, this is what I had so far. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is... And that's all I had. A boy with a whopping 18 years of experience, one who still taps people on the opposite shoulder to try and get them to look the other way, is supposed to deliver an uplifting message to my fellow graduates and try to inspire them to reach for the stars, take life by the short ones, tie a rope around them, pull them down, and put them in your pocket, and all the other cliched statements that make Taz want to strangle high school students. I didn't know how to do that. But in those 20 to 30 minutes I spent staring at the computer screen, not writing my name, I instead thought back to my first day of high school. Now I remember that day as well as I can remember the day I broke my arm, or the day that I watched my first episode of SpongeBob SquarePants, or the day that I got a rectal exam, just very, very, very vividly. Yeah. With my Power Rangers lunchbox and my little Hello Kitty backpack. And I don't know if you guys can tell right now, but I'm kind of like on my tiptoes trying to reach this microphone. And believe it or not, I was actually shorter then. I know. And the first image I see when I walk into the school is this big, 6'2", 252-pound guy with a football jersey on. Yes, I'm talking about you, Mike Valchev. And I see this girl who, well... let's just say she looked a little different than the girls that I was used to seeing at the time. Ivana got that. and I was petrified. I stood in place for like 7 or 8 minutes, and I probably would have stayed there longer if a different girl hadn't said these words. I need to turn in my summer reading. And I thought, oh! Summer reading, the thing that I wasted, spent my entire summer doing. I should probably go turn that in. So I started following this girl to the classroom of my future 9th grade English teacher, Miss Washburn, who was a voice behind a giant stack of summer reading binders piled precariously on top of her desk saying, make sure your name's on it, put it on my desk, and get out. Now, being that my pants were already slightly damp from the day's roller coaster ride of emotion, I was eager to comply with her wishes and sprinted out of Miss Washburn's sight, who, believe it or not, did little to ease my apprehensiveness about high school. But Washburn English actually ended up being one of my favorite classes in high school. I mean, we read some fantastic literature, such as Charles Dickinson's ingenious take on the French Revolution, told in the dual perspective of 2 cities. We read about 2... perhaps slightly over-affectionate boys who went to a prep school together by the names of Gene and Finney. And of course, accompanied with all of these wonderful stories, we gradually got accustomed to our magnificently constructed reading journals. Now I'm not saying that reading journals were necessarily bad. I'm just saying that after we completed like our 53rd reading journal, after being in our class for only 3 days, we were just like, all right, this is getting a little tiring. But we did survive reading journals and moving like cattle, which is sacred in my country, into our sophomore year. Now, what actually struck us the most about being in 10th grade wasn't so much the fact that we were now sophomores. It was more so the fact that we weren't freshmen. Because, according to us, because we weren't freshmen, everybody didn't hate us anymore. So that must mean, because nobody hates us, everybody loves us! So, basing our behavior upon this newfound ideology we had recently espoused, we strutted into the school, boasting loudly of how we were able to open our lockers on only the 5th attempt, and we continued our conceited gait into Miss Angela Sloane's room. Now we walk in, we march right up to her, and we give her a look that says, I don't know you, and you don't know me. But I am, without a doubt, the biggest, baddest mofo that has ever set foot into this room. And Miss Sloane glares right back at you, staring you down, returning the favor with a look that just screams, you most certainly are! And you just look around because you have no idea how to handle this sort of motherly kindness. So you walk to a desk and you sit down, wait for Miss Sloane to go over the syllabus and hand out a bunch of papers and remain seated while she hands out a book. While these books are being passed back, you raise your hand and ask the question which everybody in the room was thinking. Do we have to do reading journals? And she responds with a jovial, ha! No, of course not. You guys are sophomores. We like you now. Now you're thinking to yourself, oh, I get the world's most loving woman as my English teacher, and now I get to read a book without doing a reading journal? But sadly, this intense happiness is premature because at that moment you take your first look at the book sitting in front of you and you see, on the front cover, an elephant-sized, supposedly newborn baby held in the arms of a woman with a red A stitched to her blouse. Now, if you guys haven't already used your context clues, I'm, of course, talking about Nathaniel Hawthorne's The Scarlet Letter. Now, I'm not going to divulge my true feelings about this book as not to offend any potential Nathaniel Hawthorne fans in the audience, as I am sure is of limited quantity. But let's just say that was the longest 27 minutes on Spark Notes ever. However, after we surpassed that hump of discomfort, sophomore year flew by until we reached that year's food fair, upon which we received our next year's class schedule and a brand new daily poop tweet. I took a closer look at my 11th grade schedule, which contained Calculus, Spanish 4, AP United States History, Physics, AP Calculus, Advanced Chemistry, and English 11 Honors. At that moment, I'm pretty sure I blacked out for about a year, so I'm not exactly sure what happened during 11th grade, but I'm sure it was a good time. So instead, let's just skip to our senior year. I can just picture Taz in the audience just going, where is he going with this? Just get to the point. So I'm going to keep our 12th grade year short. Of all of our 4 years of high school, senior year was definitely the most memorable. AP English 12, heroin assemblies, not so anonymous bomb threats, and a struggle to establish Tank Top Tuesday are just a few of the events that occurred during our last year here. Now, I know that I said that I don't really know how to give advice, but I'm going to try my best here. Looking back at these past 4 years makes me realize how much I've changed in such a short time. Being absolutely terrified of this building when I first walked in to actually giving a speech in front of an auditorium full of people in it makes me realize I've come a long way. But then I wondered, apart from age, a couple millimeters in height, and a few, and I stress the word few, body hairs, what on earth caused this drastic change? And the only other variables I can think of were my experiences. So I leave you with this thought. If we are our moments, our instances, our situations, and we make the most out of every single one of them, we are the best we can be. And if we are the best we can be, who's to say we can't reach for the stars? take life by the few short ones that we do have, or any of the other cliched statements that make Taz want to strangle high school students. Thank you all for listening, and congratulations to the class of 2012.